Hi, this is Steve Yedlin, Director of Photography of Wake Up Dead Man, and you're listening to the Cinematography Podcast.
Hey, this is Cinepod, the Cinematography Podcast, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Hey, I'm your host, Ben Rock. Today on our show, I got to interview Steve Yedlin. Steve has worked with director Rian Johnson as the DP on everything Rian Johnson has ever directed, starting all the way back to with Brick and Looper and The Brothers Bloom and all of his films. And the entire Knives Out series, Star Wars The Last Jedi, and most recently, Knives Out Wake Up Dead Man, which is streaming currently on Netflix, which you should go watch right now if you haven't seen it already. It's freaking awesome.
Ryan's really adamant, and I am too, that you don't want to just keep doing the same thing. That's boring. And also, we're just always trying to tell the story in the most strongly visual way possible.
In this episode, you're going to learn about the longtime collaboration that Steve's had with director Rian Johnson, shooting scenes with minimal coverage and large ensemble casts, the use of creep zooms and dolly zooms to amp up the intensity of the movie, the Gothic lighting cues used in the church set with specialized software that Steve himself designed. Steve is designing software. After the interview, stick around for our short ends, our pet obsessions of the week. But first, let's find out what's grabbing our attention in the world of entertainment with our close focus.
Hey there, Ben.
Hey, Elliot, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It is time for our close focus, and we have all kinds of self-serving information and stuff to talk about this week.
Well,
first of all,
happy freaking New Year. It's 2026.
Exactly. It is 2026. It's a brand new year. It's our first show of the new year.
What year did we start doing this? Was it 2014?
2014, 12 years ago.
So we've been doing this crap for 12 years. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe 12 years of this.
Yes, I actually had to adjust our episode count because it turns out that if you were on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify and tried to go to some older episodes, you couldn't find anything prior to 2020. I just changed it, so now they're all there now. So.
Oh man, I mean that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. But and speaking of the podcast, we just hit 3 million downloads, which is incredible. Almost 2/3 of those are inside the US, about 1.7, 1.8 million. But the rest of them, much of the English speaking world that is listening to us. And thank you to all of our 3 million downloads out there.
Is it just one dude downloading us 3 million times in a row?
I'm pretty sure it's not like Taiwanese, bot farms that are downloading all of our stuff. It could be, but I somehow don't think so. I think that
sometime you'll have to explain to me how that could be profitable for anybody, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But in addition to us hitting this wonderful milestone and it being a new year, the ASC just published an Instagram carousel with their 25 new inductees from 2025.
Okay, before we get into it, let's explain to people, what is the ASC? What distinguishes the ASC? It's not a union. It's not. What is
It's a club.
It's a club,
basically. Yeah, their mission, first of all, they're old. They're more than 100 years old. They were founded in 1919 with the express purpose of advancing the art and science of cinematography and bringing cinematographers together to exchange ideas, discuss techniques, and promote motion picture as an art form.
Sounds like what we do.
It is a little bit. And I do myself sit on the ASC tech committees, at least for lenses and lighting in particular. And when I was in Los Angeles, I was sort of a regular at the tech committee. They now call them, that's got a different name, but a lot of us still call it the tech committee stuff. But I'm not.
Whereas I have been to the clubhouse twice. Anyway.
I was just mentioning this to you right before we started recording, but the new Netflix show Jay Kelly actually has a scene early in the movie where they're not using it as the ASC, but it actually is completely shot at the ASC clubhouse, which is pretty funny. It's right in the shadow of the Magic Castle. It's right in the heart of Hollywood, and they have a really active program for members and also people in the community, and occasionally a couple times a year, open to the public. They have these big, broad sort of open house events.
I think that's when I've been there. That's when they let the riffraff in. They're like, hey, we didn't notice Rock walked in. But we've interviewed obviously scads of DPs who are ASC members, and there are obviously other non-American cinematography associations, BSC, et cetera. But like, what does the ASC, if you have an ASC after your name, what does that mean? And who gets into the ASC? How do you get it?
Well, there's two sort of levels. There's the active members, and the active members are people who make their living as a cinematographer. And then there's the associate member. And the associate members don't typically use the three letters after their name. Occasionally, if they're involved, maybe like in the editing or publication of the official sort of like Bible of cinematography, the American Cinematographer's Manual, things like that, you might see it's those letters after someone's name who's not an active member. But pretty much active members are people who are engaged in the art and the craft of making movies. And then there's a whole bunch of sort of like ancillary people who get involved in different ways that support the members or support the community or support just essentially the art of cinematography in various ways. Now, the 25 new active members, 6 of them have all been on the show. So first of all, congratulations to all of those who've been on the show.
To every single one of you. Hopefully the other, the rest of you will come on the show at some point.
Well, I was going to say, I think that, this actually puts forth a pretty, likely math sort of probability scenario here where if you come on the Cinematography podcast, there's like a 30% chance that you'll get in the ASC. I think that's like basically what it's saying. It's like, because 30% of their members have been on the show from 2025. So I'm saying that like clearly correlation equals causation. Clearly. So anyway, we in alphabetical order.
It's just science, man.
Totally science.
Correlation and causation are identical. So, hey, it wouldn't hurt. Come on the show. All right.
We got to say, hey, congratulations to Eric Bronco, ASC. I interviewed Eric ages ago. We got to say congratulations to Lowell Crawley, who, he was a BSC member. He's also an ASC member now.
No slouch. Also a freaking winner of the Oscar. That's all it takes.
Yes, exactly. Catherine Goldschmidt, who, of course, has been on the show a couple of times. Love Catherine. It's always great to talk to her. Now ASC member. Let's see. Who else? Natalie Kingston, ASC. Alicia Robbins, ASC. She's got Bridgerton going on right now. Claudia Raschke. I did a wonderful interview with Claudia. If you don't know Claudia's work, it's great to go back and listen to her episode. ASC. And was there somebody else on here? I think that was all of them. So congratulations to all of our.
And if we missed any of you,
guests.
we're very sorry.
And if we did miss someone, I'm sorry, but I think that was everyone. So anyway, that just about does it for our close focus. Should we get to the interview?
Well, I mean, we absolutely should get to the interview because it's freaking amazing. It's Steve Yedlin, and we've been wanting to get Steve on the show for years upon years. So
I'm mad jealous. I really wanted to be able to be part of that interview, but the schedules did not align for me. And I hope you guys get into the weeds a little bit because Steve can get into the weeds. I know.
We get into the weeds. Can I just say, we talk to everybody. And I can generally follow what everyone's talking about. Steve, in many cases, I just realized I was talking to a towering intellect, and it was going to take me actual work to keep up with him because what he's doing as a cinematographer is. He just kind of opened up his process to me in the interview, but also talking about the app development and everything that he's doing. Like, it's just fascinating stuff. And, we've talked to a lot of people recently who I think are really pushing the art. And I think he's someone who has always done really innovative, interesting work. And on top of it, it's just freaking fun. If you haven't seen the new Knives Out movie, it's just really fun.
And I've been in the same room with Steve now probably a half dozen times. I've never met him. I attended one of his ASC workshops. I was in the back of the room. I got to be there and listen to it for a bit. But man, the guy's got a big old brain. And
I should make a shout out, by the way, that he shot my friend Ed Sanchez's second movie. Ed's first movie was The Blair Witch Project. His second movie, Altered, and that was when I met Steve, which is in 2004 or something, 2005. I got to see a print of the movie, and then we all went and got dinner with Steve. And so he's always been on my radar because he worked with my friend. But he's done every Rian Johnson project. I think he's the first DP we've ever had on who has shot a Star War if I'm not mistaken.
No. We've had Bradford Young on. He did Solo. We've had.
You're right.
We had.
I take it all back.
No, we had Q, who did Ahsoka. We had Eric Steelberg. I mean,
I'm talking about a feature film, a Star Wars feature film. You're right. You're right. Bradford did Solo. That's true.
All right. Well, and then of course we interviewed people for Andor. It's like, look, man, it's like
I'm talking about films.
You're talking. Okay. I understand. I understand.
I'm talking about on the feature side, but you're actually right about Bradford Young.
Well, anyway, Steve Yedlin, super cool guy. He's good friends with Jaron Priesant, who, of course, is a good friend of the show. And I can't wait to hear this interview. I'm ready to get into it.
All right. Well, let's do it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're here to talk about the new Knives Out. Just a really fun and interesting film that I feel like you use the whole toolbox. There's so much going on in the movie. So let's talk about let's just kind of start by talking about kind of Knives Out as a franchise, which you've shot all of them. And it's not the same franchise, but Poker Face, which has some similarities. You've shot some of those as well for Rian. Where do you start with a Knives Out? Where do you start visually when you're conceptualizing a mystery? In this case, a closed door mystery that they are very forthcoming about the nature of within the actual narrative, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, Rian, I think part of the reason that Rian is happy and actually excited to do the franchise is because he always wants to challenge himself and do something different, and he doesn't really treat them like sequels. They're just it's just another movie. It's a Benoit Blanc movie, and although they are all Benoit Blanc movies, they're sort of literally not sequels in that there's no sequence. They're all, each one's its own movie. And they're specifically designed like that, like the Agatha Christie books, like a Poirot novel. They all have Poirot in them, but they're all different from each other, and you don't have to read them in an order.
Yeah.
Each one's a reset. And so, yeah, it's really not, in a lot of ways, it's not, figuring out the look and how we're going to approach it isn't guided by the franchise aspect of it per se. I mean, there's kind of an automatic aspect of that, which is just, it is part of the same, it's us doing it, and there are things that are similar, like the ensemble cast and Benoit Blanc. So there's kind of things that, even if you're not pointedly trying to do it exactly the same, there's going to be similarities. But overall, we just approach it as a new movie, and what's right for this movie, what's the best and most exciting visual way to tell the story, while really supporting it and making it visually exciting, but not distracting. And and figuring it out for the specific script, and kind of just rolling up our sleeves and figuring out, designing each individual scene rather than, for the most part, not using sort of general photography rules. There's no one weird trick aspect.
Well, what's interesting to me about them is that each one of them, and I've seen them all, they all have a different look. They all have a different color palette. They all have a different vibe, location, etc. But the thing that to me is consistent with all of them is that there's a playfulness, and specifically a playfulness with the way the camera work is done, with the lensing, with the way you move the camera, with the way stuff is lit. There's like I don't know, like I kind of feel a, hey, this is going to be cool, kind of underscoring every moment of it, and it's kind of infectious to me as a viewer, because like there's like this anticipation that's constantly building. So I feel like this one's a little bit like tone wise, because so much of it takes place inside this church. It's a little darker. It's a little moodier than Glass Onion was. Glass Onion was very bright. But it still kind of has that playfulness. Like now you and Rian Johnson have been working together now for over 20 years that I know of, maybe before that, since Brick was 20 years ago. I can't believe it. So I don't know how much of that is just kind of unstated in your relationship with each other, and you just have a sixth sense of what each other wants. But like, how do you go about it, kind of infusing kind of that playfulness? What are the thoughts that go through you? And maybe and if that's too general a question, maybe take us through a scene about how you broke it down and created the coverage that you guys created.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Well, that's great that it comes across like that, because that's is kind of the hope, is that it has that the photography has the fun and, as you say, infectiousness that I think is kind of the overall tone of the movie in all, in all its other aspects as well. And, the photography is there to support that and broaden
Mhm.
it and elevate it.
It's a character in it, though. I mean, like, I think the photography is definitely a character, and very deliberate. It has such, I don't know, it sparkles.
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ryan and I have, we've known each other since we were and made movies together, like little homemade movies, since we were kind of, I think, 18 and 19 years old, or
Oh wow.
or something like that. So I've known him for 30 years or whatever. And yeah, it's so we don't spend a lot of time talking about the generalities, like how are we gonna attack this in a general way, because we sort of already have all of that. We already know how we both think and how we come up with things. So, Ryan will mention things, that he wants to do different or specific. A lot of it's in the script, so you don't have to, we don't have to talk about it that much. Like the fact that this one is this much more, Gothic story and locale with horror movie type scenes in it,
Hmm.
that's in a sun-drenched villa. So a lot of it's just right there in what it is, in terms of the general stuff, is right there in just what it is that we're even doing. And so in this, like with the, I think the extent of sort of the general overall things that we talked about was, Ryan said, I want to do all of these, because he knows I've been developing like sort of new custom software for light control stuff. So he's like, I want to do all of these light changes during scenes where what's happening outside is infusing the interior.
I noticed that. That was one of my questions, because like we're inside the church, and I noticed like oh, it's like a cloud passed in front of the sun, and the light was a little bit less, and I'm like, that can't be an accident.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So all of this design stuff with the sun breaking out of the clouds, or the clouds covering the sun. And then we also have, dusk, dawn, early morning, night. And so, besides, so kind of he said to me, that he wanted to do that. And then I said to him, given that this one is a little more gothic, I'm thinking about getting some more black into all of the shots, not even necessarily the overall level of the shot being darker, but having inky black areas of the frame. And he was excited about that. And beyond sort of those two very brief things, I mean, the amount of time it took me to explain it just now is like the amount of time we talked about it. Besides that, all of the sort of prep and the work that goes into it and how we figure it out isn't abstract general things about the whole movie. It's actually designing the individual scenes. Like Ryan says, he knows he wants this to be like this in this scene and that to be like that in that scene. And it's and then it's me taking that and making the most elevated version of translating the concept of it into a reality. And I think an example of what you were asking about, like how do we communicate this stuff, is an example will be, although there's tons of things that are planned out exactly in advance, there are also things where it's like, okay, let's do a push. We're going to do a push in on this character, and it's going to be right on this line. And sometimes we're figuring that out, not even just in the rehearsal, but the change in takes. And there's a lot of times where, and exactly this, like specifically the push in, like exactly the speed of a push in and when it starts and when it finishes has totally different feels. Like if you go one exact speed, it's going to feel like that Spielberg swelling emotional build push in.
Yeah.
But if you go faster than that, it's going to have a different feel, or if you go a little slower. And that's not like a robotic thing. It's not like this is the speed to make it feel like this. It really has to do with, what lens you're on and the gesture of the actor, and what the lines are and how fast they're speaking, and all of those things. And there'll be a lot of times where, like, I'll say to Ryan, should we just go a tiny bit slower on the dolly? And he's like, yes, I was going to say that. Like we both have that sort of same visual language where things hit us the same way. So it's not like we're robotically trying to do the same thing we did in the past. We're just trying to tell this story the best we can. And just simply because we have the same kind of general taste, we can kind of sync up on that, on those kinds of decisions and ways to elevate it. Like, it was already good in that take, but we're going to make it even better this time.
What's your strategy for covering scenes with a lot of characters? Because that can become a morass of various axes that you have to compensate for, and all that. Like watching any of the Knives Out movies, to me, it's always like, there's inevitably several scenes with like 8 or 9 people in them, and they're all talking to Benoit Blanc. How do you navigate that? Or is it just like, well, we're going to have to bear down and shoot every axis of this?
No, absolutely. No, we do not. We do not do that. The kind of old school TV hose down version of it like that. I think contemporary TV is sometimes more cinematic than cinema, but there's kind of the old school television version that is just get everybody's head
Yeah.
shot, and we absolutely don't want to do that. Firstly, because it's really boring visually, and secondly, it takes an inordinate amount of time to shoot it. If you actually shot everybody from everybody else's eye line or whatever, I mean, that would just take forever. So the approach with that is, Ryan always has a plan. He always has a shot list. Never goes in without a plan. How much it needs to be fleshed out on the day, versus, like, sort of how abstract versus specific it is varies. And specifically when we have a scene where, especially if it's the whole cast and there's not a lot of blocking, like we actually have not just one, but a few scenes in Wake Up Dead Man where a huge percentage of the ensemble cast is kind of sitting in a circle
Yeah.
rectory. So things like that, he's less, the shot list is more of just a guide, and we do kind of have to figure it out based on watching the actors do the scene. And those scenes, he and I figure out together a little more than the other scenes, where it's like he has a shot idea and I'm tasked with, let's make this a good shot. Let's figure out how to do it and make it a good shot. And so on those scenes, um, it's a lot of figuring out where is the very strong stage line, instead of imagining that there's one stage line between every single set of two characters. Where is the strong line? Like, this scene is about an engagement between these two people, so that becomes the strong line, and we're going to try to pretty much never cross that one. And then the other ones, we just figure, like, this is okay that they're technically on the wrong side of their own line if they're on the right side of the strong.
Mm.
And also, it's sort of like, if it actually helps that we're not doing the traditional coverage, because when you do the traditional coverage where one head, it's just head and shoulders shots of people, and it's just one head replacing another. Besides the fact that that's boring because you're not anchored in the space, you need the eye line to tell you where you are and where people are looking. But if you do shots that are more anchored and they show the relationship of people, like you've got somebody in the foreground and somebody in the background, and you have the cast arranged, um, it's more visually exciting. It tells the story of how these people are interacting with each other, and who's foregrounded and who's backgrounded. And then it also, like, just simply helps you know where you are. So if the camera's technically on the wrong eye line for where the person happens to be looking at this moment, it's still on correct stage line in the larger sense, and you can see enough of the arrangement of people in the shot that you're not relying solely on the stage line to know where they're looking.
So, like, would an example of that be maybe when Benoit Blanc has them all in the church, and he's kind of up at the like this is a very broad grand version of it, but he's like up at the lectern that looks like a giant boat, and he's talking to all of them in the church. So would you say that like the strong line would be like him to them, and then if one of them talks to the other one, and you use the close-ups that are on his axis to them, even if their eye lines are incorrect, we know where they are in space, and it's not disorienting or weird.
Absolutely. And the other thing to me with stage line, and and Ryan and I have talked about this a lot, but I think it's absolutely true. To me, is geography trumps stage line.
Mm-hmm.
That if you can tell where you are in space, you have to have them look the correct way for the geography. I mean, just the really simple example is if I have a shot through the front windshield of a car window and the driver's looking left to right to the passenger, and then I put the camera in the back seat, you can't have the passenger look left to right just because the driver was looking right to left. It looked like they're looking in the back seat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so once.
Well, yeah, this is all about knowing where you are in space, and we all know what it's like to be in a car. So you're never going to be confused spatially within a car.
Exactly. So you can make the decision not to move the camera from out inside out the windshield to the back seat. You can not cross the line by not putting the camera there. But if you do put the camera there, you can't then have them both, one looking left to right and one looking right to left. They actually both have to be looking left to right because of this geography trumps stage line thing. So like even specifically in your example in the church, we actually do cross not just the minor line, but we actually cross the major line in some of those where both when Blanc's up there, but also when Wicks is up there, where the main line of the scene might be that when he's up on the ambo, he's looking left to right. But then when you cut to people, down below, some of them are looking right to left because of where the camera is.
Mm-hmm.
Would have had to put the camera in a sort of a weird place for them to do the correct stage line. The camera kind of would have been in a weird place, but so we're getting the best shot to show their reaction. And then there's geography trump stage line, so they kind of have to be looking what's technically the wrong stage line
Mm-hmm.
in certain cases like that. So there's very compelling reasons why, storytelling reasons why the stage line exists. But I think you have to remember why it does and what it's in service of, and so it's a principle. It's like a shorthand way to remember what is the way to keep people grounded and oriented. But then you have to remember that it's a principle and not a rule. And if you kind of remember the bigger principle that made that, or the bigger principle that's like a sort of a trick for achieving, it's easier to confidently decide how you're going to tell this story, because when you do have that many people in the scene, if you just slavishly do the technical version of the stage line, there's no way not to get wound up like you're talking about. You'll forget all of the visual and
Mm-hmm.
storytelling and just get lost. And we have all these different people looking if you got 9 people in the scene and they all look at you, are you going to literally shoot every one of the 9 people from both shoulders of every other one of the 9 people? I mean,
Ugh.
you'd only shoot one scene in the time you have allotted to shoot the whole movie.
I know you'll get really stuck. Well, I don't know. I mean, this is maybe a conversation for a different time, but there's a rabbit hole to go down, which is like, we've all seen people who jump the line and get away with it, and it doesn't pull you out. And we've all seen movies where they jump the line and it immediately makes you go, what am I looking at? And I'm always trying to figure out what is the what am I looking at version of crossing the line. Because I mean, and I think it's probably what you're talking about. It's like, if you are not geographic, if you're only in close-ups and then you jump the line, that'll feel freaking weird. But
Well, I actually do have a theory about. I mean,
oh, please share. This is great.
Well, firstly, I think that firstly, again, I think if you're telling the story really well, that's the bigger thing. Like, and I don't just mean like is the script compelling. I mean, if you're visually telling the story well and you know why you're crossing the line, that's one thing. But I know for me, because when I'm shooting a movie, I'm thinking about it. When I'm watching a movie, I'm usually not.
Yeah.
Suddenly I go, whoa, what are they looking at? Because I'm usually not thinking about it. Then I know something. Then I actually start thinking about it. I'm like, what did they do? I want to make sure I don't do that because usually when I watch a movie, I'm not ever thinking about the stage line. And I just now was like, what just happened? And to me, I mean, this is very personal, but the times when it takes me out of the movie is when they break both the stage direction and the geography rule. When they do both, like I was saying, geography trumps stage line.
Hmm.
You got to get one of the two right. It's got to be the geography. But if you get them both wrong, that's when it goes really wacky. So, an example of that is, um, when you're in if you're in a forest, it's one thing, but if you're in a room and we know that rooms have flat walls that are 90 degrees off from each other,
Hmm.
know where it is. So like right now, like I'm pointing to the left of this wall that's behind me. For the people that are watching the video, I guess there's video. So I'm pointing to the left of the wall. So it's not just which side is the camera on, am I looking left or right to the camera? It's also I'm looking that side of the wall. So if I'm looking right to left and I'm looking away from the wall, then if we cut to the other person, and not only are they looking left to right instead of right to left, but they're also looking the wrong direction relative to the wall to be able to see me.
Mm.
If both of those things are wrong, not just one, then it really turns into a what am I looking at situation.
I'm the same way where it's like if I'm watching a movie and it's, if I'm just watching it to enjoy it, it has to kind of really not work to grab my attention. But let's get back into your film. And I wanted to talk about the lenses because it feels like when I think about it, it feels like a wide-ish lens show, but you also used zooms judiciously, like mechanical zooms that I thought were really cool. And let's just talk about the lenses you went with, and just real quick, also what camera, what size sensor is really what I'm mostly interested in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think that part's very interesting. Or,
Yeah.
you can make it look the same with whatever it is. That's all.
Yeah, it's more just like the size of the sensor because as it relates to the lens and the crop factor of the lens, etc.
Well, what's interesting is I've actually stopped, like once we're on a movie, we talk in millimeters of lenses, but like in advance, like what before we know what camera, like what our frame lines are and everything. The thing is, in the past, we used to have like a standard framing area or two, like regular and anamorphic. And now, like every job is different. Like literally every project is different framing areas. We never have the same one. So I actually sort of stopped thinking in millimeters, and I think of ratio of the focal length of the lens to the frame width.
Hmm.
That's always the same. So like Ryan's go-to lens is the 1.2 lens. It's the lens which is where the focal length of the lens is 1.2 times the width of the target size of the frame area, the width of the frame area. So that's going to be the same. The 1.2 lens is the same no matter what your sensor size is. That's the one that the 1.2 lens is always going to have the same angle of view for any sensor size. I think our framing area on this one was around 24 millimeter width, which is very close to traditional Super 35 size.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't exactly that, but it was somewhere near there. It's a great way for, I mean, I think it's a great way for people when if you are doing projects where you're not always using the same frame area, it's a good way to remember what lens you like. A 50 millimeter on one frame size is totally different than a 50 millimeter on another frame size. But what is the same is the 1.2 lens or the 1.1, the 1.0 lens, the one-to-one lens is where the focal length is the same as the frame. So like if you're shooting 24 millimeter with, I do it with width. You could do it with height. It just
Mm-hmm.
one and stick to it. It doesn't matter which one it is. You could also do diagonal. It doesn't matter. Whichever one you pick, you have to stick to. So if you're doing horizontal, which is what I do, then the 24 millimeter. If we're shooting 24 millimeter sensor size, then the 24 millimeter lens is the one-to-one lens.
Hmm.
7 millimeter is the 1.2 lens, and the 50 millimeter is going to be the closest to the 2-to-1 lens because there isn't a 48 millimeter.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, so as we changed all the sensor sizes, so like like Knives Out was I'm going to say frame size, not sensor size, because it's where do you draw the frame lines. For
Yeah.
Knives Out was the first Knives Out was probably very close to was very close to standard 35 sensor area, not super. Wake Up Dead Man was very close to super 35, and Glass Onion was closer to VistaVision. It wasn't all the way there, but it was closer to VistaVision size than super. But once you know what it is, you just rejigger. So we're not saying that. We're not saying, hey, give me the 1.2 lens.
Yeah. That was my question. Yeah.
No, but when you start the movie, you hinge it on that. So like if Ryan's go-to lens always is the 1.2 lens, like I'll even tell him at the beginning, on this movie it's the 27, or on this movie it's the 35 or whatever. And in fact, like some people get superstitious about lenses where they get stuck in their head the number. But Ryan really doesn't. He really truly gravitates towards that angle of view because something, and I do too, actually,
Hmm.
when I'm not working, even when I work with other directors. Because to me, there's something nice about that size where it feels like you're actually in the space and not hanging back. It's not like kind of voyeuristic, hang back observational. You're in the space and interacting with it, but it's also not a super wide lens right in somebody's face, which is distracting in its own way. So by no means is everything that angle of view, but that's kind of a good starting point for sort of normal shots of like people in rooms and things like that. But on Glass Onion, we had changed our frame lines. We had at some point I had the frame line set to one size in prep, and then I changed it. And I had told Ryan, and so I got it in my own head, that the 40 on Glass Onion was the equivalent, his go-to 1.2 lens. It was the closest. It's not exactly. It's just of the fixed focal lengths, it's the closest one.
And you were using a bigger sensor on there. That's why the 40, a longer lens, was that 1.2.
Exactly. So I told him the 40 was the 1.2. So the 40 was the equivalent of what on Knives Out had been the 27. And he kept going to the 35 instead of the 40, as again, not every shot, but like the number of shots that was the 35 instead of the 40 was huge. And I was like, and at first I was like, well, you're going a little wider this time. And then I remembered that I had calculated 40 before we changed the frame lines.
Oh.
It's not like he was just listening to me and getting it in his head because Steve said that the 40 is my lens. Actually knows that angle of view, and it really connects with him. And so yeah, so the go-to lens is the 1.2 lens, no matter what our sensor size is. And in terms of zooms, you asked about zooms. Yeah, I mean, Ryan loves zooms. We've done zooms on all of his movies,
Hmm.
in varying amounts and types. Like we always do creep zooms throughout, and then probably I think you may have noticed it more because this movie has more like big obvious zooms in addition.
Yeah, like in a voyeuristic way. Like, oh yeah, we see a wide shot of Thomas Hayden Church in his garage, and now we're gonna zoom in on him.
Yeah, specifically for that scene, Panavision customized. We actually got it's not a cinema lens, like the only lens that has that kind of I can't remember what it was. It was like a 40-to-1 zoom or something like that.
Oh wow.
It was a crazy lens that's usually only used for sports. So Panavision kind of, I don't even remember everything they had to do to kind of get it ready for us to use, where we could use it with our normal focus unit. And it already had the correct lens mount and everything, but just in terms of how do we get it on our camera and interface with it with our lens, with our focus motors and all of that stuff, they had to do a bunch of stuff to make it work for us. But yeah, so that one was a specialty one. But in terms of in general, we tend to do a lot of creep zooms, and like we were talking about how there's these subtle differences to like even the slightest different speed of a push in feels different.
Yeah.
To me, something that is different about a creep zoom than a push in, because we do a lot of, a lot of times we push in with a dolly, but then also a lot of times we do a creep zoom. And to me, a creep zoom is always, not just sometimes, as long as you do it slow enough, intensifying. Like it feels like things are getting really serious and intense.
Hmm.
A push in of roughly the same speed could feel intensifying, but it also could feel like emotionally swelling and elevating rather than getting serious, depending on the exact thing. So I think that's sort of a difference in the feel of the, even though they're sort of the same thing, you're making the image size get bigger.
Yeah, somebody once on here said this, and I unpack it whenever I think about the difference. But she said a dolly brings the camera closer to the actor, and the zoom brings the actor closer to the camera. And they're not physically doing it, but yeah, it's like you're getting more into like they're getting into your space in a way, as opposed to you getting into their space. And there's, yeah, I mean, because I wanted to ask you, you kind of just answered it, but I wanted to ask, like, within the film grammar, because there's so much movement and so much interesting movement, that what makes you decide this should be a zoom instead of a dolly?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that is one of the main things is this sort of intensification. Um, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the dolly can be, depending on the context, like what the actor is doing and what's happening in the scene. I think the dolly can have, and we're talking about comparable slow ones. I'm not talking about a big fast push in.
Obviously, yeah.
A big fast push in and a snap zoom are like totally, totally different feels. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna do a slow push in, the dolly one is very, to me, anyway, a dolly push in is very contextual. If somebody's, if the reality of something is landing on somebody and you push in, that's you're gonna feel the weight of whatever this thing is that's sinking in for them. Whereas if you're cutting to somebody's mom watching TV while their daughter wins the Olympics, and you do that
Yeah.
push, and it's going to be the swelling emotion, the exact same push in. Whereas to me, the creep zoom is always an intensifying thing. So you might do the creep zoom instead of the push in on that first example, but you wouldn't want to do the creep zoom instead of the push in on the second example because it's just not the right feel. You don't want an intensifying, um, like things are really getting serious feel to that one.
So you mentioned earlier, and I think Jaron might have mentioned this to us when we had him on at one point, about the software that you're creating. Can you tell us a little? I know I said we weren't going to get tech, but like you're creating a software to be used by yourself and I assume other cinematographers. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we're absolutely want it to be available to people. We're a ways off from that. We have been using sort of a components version of it where it's not all put into a shiny box. It's kind of the separate pieces of this thing that's going to exist. But the idea of it, without getting too technical, is is manifold, but it's really something that's designed. A lot of the software that we use to control lights on sets, the dimmer board style software, is A, designed for concerts more than cinema, and B, it was originally designed when there was literally just fading things up and down. We didn't have all of the color control we now have of LEDs, and we didn't have lights that have a whole bunch of pixels within the light where you can control different parts of the front of the light separately. So sort of when as all the stuff came out and they added it to those things, it was very much a clunky add-on to the old model, rather than saying what would be the model to control this stuff in an intuitive way, for what we actually do. And they never kind of changed the foundation of that. They just kind of grafted all this new stuff onto it. So this is kind of everything built from the ground up, expecting LED colors, lots of complicated cues, pixel control, and then also making dumb lights into smart lights because we have these movie lights where you can very precisely control the color. I can not just, it's not just color temperature from warm to cool. I can match an exact color. Like if I have daylight bouncing off of some trees and then coming through a tinted window, I can measure that with the spectrometer and make the movie light the same color if I want it to be. But you can't do that with the non-movie lights usually. And so this is a way to integrate where the dumb lights that don't do that on their own do that just as well also. So it's kind of all these things rolled into one. Um, and it allows us to do and the thing is that sounds really technical, but the whole point of it is what's technical about it happens in development of the thing, not when we're
Mhm.
shooting. Then when we're shooting, we actually be more creative and less time doing technical stuff because we're not saying, why can't you do this? What's happening? What's going on? It's just, it's just the kind of the classic software phrase of the best interface is no interface. You're not thinking about how do I do it. The interface is so invisible to you, you just do the thing that you're trying to do. And that's kind of the idea of it.
I'd love to actually see the interface because it's hard for me to imagine what it looks like. But is there a website or anything for it, or is it still deeply in development?
No, no, very much deeply in development for because like I said, the version that we're using ourselves is yeah, it's very clunky and would not be in any way conducive to somebody who it isn't their thing that understands what's happening under the hood. And the final version is going to be in a very beautiful, sleek box where it's, obvious, where it's obvious how to use it, and it has all the guardrails to make sure everything's happening correctly.
So do you like bring your do you do a crash course for your gaffers and say like here's how to use this thing, or is it something you're putting your hands on more on set? Or?
I mean, the way I've been doing it, and I'm sure this will change a bit when it actually is, because also I don't want to make anybody learn something temporary too.
Yeah.
This is a temporary version of it. So, I mean, basically, on set, I'm doing it, which to me is an advantage, not a disadvantage, because you don't have this multi-step thing that's both slow and the broken telephone problem of I tell the gaffer something, they tell the lighting programmer something, and then it gets interpreted and it takes time. Like I can do all these little tweaks, and this is what's so satisfying because when you do zoom back to the creative instead of the technical, is really we're trying to express ourselves, right? Like it's like, how can I make this lighting everything that I'm trying to do? It's trying to be I have to make it look like a big movie. I need to make I need the lighting to be flattering on actors, at least when we want it to be very evocative of the time of day, and in a way that's both on the one hand theatrical and big, but on the other hand, even if it's not literally realistic, it's realistic enough that it doesn't feel like a fake movie light stuff. So I'm trying to express my version of that, like what would I love to see when I go to the cinema. And this allows sort of immediate um changes. I can make the smallest changes to exactly the difference in color between the sun and the sky, or how bright the sun is versus the sky, and all of that stuff. And I can feel that difference, on a knob with a very nuanced um, change. So that's kind of that's kind of the promise of the thing, and also why I enjoy, and it's not a chore that I'm doing it instead of somebody else.
It's interesting though because again like one of the things I took note of was I assumed that the church was set, but then I noticed that there were these subtle changes in the light, and it felt it made me believe in the location more because I was like, oh, that's what would happen if you were shooting in a real church and you were using sunlight. Is you if you were standing in that church and real sunlight was pouring through, subtle changes in clouds and stuff would shift the light in there, and it brought like a realism to it in an interesting way, and I mean like the world of Knives Out is a little heightened, but it happens in the real world, and so having that it just made me believe it a little bit more, just unconsciously.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we're going for, where it does feel both real, but it's a heightened, it's real in the sense that it's evocative of the actual time of day and that space, rather than just being looking like an artificial movie light. So in that sense, it's meant to be realistic. But on the other hand, it's meant to be theatrical, not realistic, in the sense that it's very heightened and, really underscoring the drama rather than being well, that's how it's real. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether it's the drama or not. And yeah, to me, one of the most fun ones. I mean, we have a whole bunch of them, but one of the most fun ones is the very first scene between Judd and Blanc, where they kind of each give their speech on these two different sides. There are different approaches to faith and belief. And the movie is very exploratory and even-handed. It's not in any way, it's not judgmental about either of those two. It's actually
Mhm.
dealing with that complexity. And when he first comes in, it's sunny, and then when Blanc first comes in, it's sunny, and then when Blanc is giving his version of the speech, the clouds block the sun, and it gets a lot darker. And then when Judd gives his speech, the sun comes back out, and it actually happens during his speech, and we actually have a light in the shot that's the sun. And like while he's giving his speech in the shot, the sun is breaking out of the clouds.
Yeah, I know the shot. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. So, we're pretty close here on time, but I'm just curious, like what are some of the other, are there any other sequences? Are there any other huge wins? Any other, fascinating anecdotes, from the film that, camera people, DP people might be interested in hearing about?
Yeah, I just loved shooting in that church. I told Rick Heinrichs, our production designer, that's my favorite set that I've ever shot in. Which
Oh, wow.
he did an amazing job on the entire movie, but that church is incredible. So all of that stuff that we got to shoot, his incredible set that looked amazing, but that also was really set up great for us to do all these lighting cues. So that entire thing was just a dream. But I guess one that is just a fun anecdote one was that we had there's a shot of Kaylee where she's supposed to be performing in a like a large concert hall in a music hall, and it's just one shot in the movie, so there's no way we're going to go. I mean, it's literally, it's not only just one scene, it's only one shot, so there's no way
Yeah.
we're going to go to a concert hall and get extras, and
Hmm.
that just wasn't going to happen. And there was quite a while of where are we going to shoot this, what is this, and Ryan was like, well, we can just be behind her and it can kind of be dark and you don't necessarily see all the audience. But it was still a little bit of a question of what do you see? I mean, it can't just be black, it can't be her in front of a black void. And I hit on this idea of what if we basically just do a cutout of what you would see if you were on stage and the house lights are out. So it's not a black void, but you see the spotlight and you see like all the lights of like the lights under the walkways that are only bright enough to, for safety or whatever. And so we basically got together with the art department. I talked to Dean Clegg, who works with Rick. Dean was Rick's supervising art director, and we got together and we came up with this idea. We got together with him and Dave Smith, the gaffer, and we basically made this thing that's just a big giant cutout. I mean, it's huge, but it is just a cutout. It's just a solid black thing with holes in the shape of what you would see out in out there. So the spotlight is actually a spotlight. There's a hole in the black for an actual spotlight to hit her. And we put some atmosphere in there so you could see the beam of it. And then all the other lights are just holes in the thing, and it's basically just a backlit black box.
What?
And that's the shot, and that's there's no visual effects. And we didn't have to go to a create. It was just on the stage next to where we were shooting something else, and we just did the shot there.
That's incredible. I mean, I love hearing stuff like that because, when we talk about bigger budget movies, if people are starting out or they're in school or something and they're listening to this, they're not going to be able to afford to build a giant church set or whatever, but they can do that. The thing that you just described, anyone could figure out how to do their version of that. And just the beauty of how well that sold in the film. I never in a million years would have guessed that you did it that way. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's just it's fun to hear about the the ingenuity of it. And, you know, and I feel like we probably should talk a little bit about you and Rian Johnson, just because you guys have been, like you said, you've been shooting together since you were 19. You shot his first feature, Brick, and you've shot every feature he's directed ever since. What's it like having, like, because you've shot for a lot of other people as well, but you know, what's it like having that kind of a symbiotic relationship with a filmmaker on that level?
I mean, I just feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. You know, he's been my best friend, and just, you know, I'm like, I just don't know how I'm so lucky. Like, he's one of the best people I know, a great friend. And then he's this brilliant filmmaker that even if I had nothing to do with his movies, they would have been some of my favorite movies. And then I get to work on them because he keeps bringing me along. So
Yeah, and I mean it's such a variety of looks and genres. You know, when I think about, like, you know, the Glass Onion or Looper, or, you know, your Star Wars movie. I mean, like, they're very, very different in look and feel, but they all kind of have, you know, I do feel like there's a playfulness to all of them, and I feel like there's like, what he does is he takes a genre and deconstructs it and puts it back in a different order than we're used to seeing it. And that, you know, and I feel like that's definitely Looper. That's definitely what he's been doing with all of the Knives Out movies. You know, it's fascinating to watch and to see kind of, you know, the two of you guys kind of build a film language together.
oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, Ryan's, you know, really adamant, and, you know, I am too, that, you know, you don't want to just keep doing the same thing. That's boring. You know, always
Mm.
trying push it forward. And also we're just always trying to, you know, tell the story in the most strongly visual way possible, and not tie our hands with rules in advance. You know, I know there's some movies where people are like, you know, we're always going to shoot on this type of lens when we're doing this, and that type of lens when we're doing that, or we're always going to shoot this person from low, or you know, like, we don't do any sort of photographic rules, because it just feels like it's hard enough to elevate the thing and tell the best visual story, you know, because you have to deal with all the physical realities plus the what you're actually trying to do creatively. So to also additionally tie your hand with an artificial thing, just isn't our way to do it. I know I mean, that works great for some people, but it's just not our methodology. So I think we're always just trying to figure out the best way to tell this new story, and to take everything to the next level and really elevate it. And that's why they don't look the same. And I think that the extent to which there is a recognizable style, you know, and I think this is important for, you know, if people are just starting out and they're thinking like, how do I get a style or something like that? If there's a recognizable style, it's not because we're doing anything intentional to have that, but it's just because it's us doing it. You know,
Yeah.
figure out the best way we can to, um, you know, do something, even if you're actively not, you know, saying, hey, I'm going to just pull out the same thing from my bag of tricks. I'm going to do something new. It's still you're doing the problem solving. You know, there's some hint of the personality in there, because it's you figuring out how to do this thing, you know.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that's an amazing place to leave it. Before we go, is there an Instagram, a website, any place people can interact with you or see more of your work?
Yeah, I have a website, yedlin.net, and I have an Instagram account, but I don't put too much stuff on there. Yeah.
No, no, that's all good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully, we'll have you back sometime. We've been talking about having you on here for a really long time.
Well, thank you. What a pleasure. And that's so awesome that you had Jaron on. He's one of my best friends also for 25 years or whatever now. So.
So that was Steve Yedlin. Steve, hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so glad that we got to finally make this happen.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we'll have him on for the next one.
I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll get to be involved this time.
That'd be great.
All right, so Ben, it is our short end time of the show. It's our pet obsessions. Could be anything. What are you about this week?
I wanted to plug a movie, a short film that won, I believe it was the Oscar for Best Animated Short last year. And it's called War is Over, and it's co-produced by Yoko Ono and Sean Lennon.
Oh, wow.
Interestingly, and it uses some. Yeah, well, if you watch it, you'll see, and it is on YouTube now. You can actually just watch it on good old YouTube. And a friend of mine was, I don't think he was a producer on it. He might have been a producer. His name's Alok Mishra, but he had something to do with their Oscar campaign, and he worked with them. And so I kept hearing the background of the Oscar campaign as they were leading up to it. And then he was at the Oscars, and then they freaking won. And it's an animated film that uses, and it's 2 years old now because it was made in 2023. I guess 3 years old now. But they kind of threw the kitchen sink at it in terms of the variety of techniques that are being used. And it's a really, really good short. And it's maybe, I probably should have plugged it right before Christmas because it's a Christmas film, and maybe everyone listening to this like me is kind of sick of Christmas stuff, but it's actually it's just a really great short. Lightstorm had something to do with it, which is James Cameron's company, and like they're obviously, it's animation, but they're using like Unreal Engine, and they're using performance capture technique, and they're using traditional animation techniques. It's like a mishmash, and I feel like it's something that if you're interested in animation and like where it's headed and what the tools can do, even though this is a couple of years ago, I think that really all that's changed in the last couple of years is that these tools have gotten more accessible. You can go on YouTube and see some making ofs that they made that kind of show the various techniques that they used. But it's really interesting to see kind of stylized characters, like, something like Avatar. They're obviously stylized, but they're stylized to look ultra realistic. These are stylized to look like cartoony people, but they're using performance capture. And I wonder why more people don't mess around with that. I actually just think this is a beautiful story that's got a great message. It's really short. It's 11 minutes long, including credits. It's got some John Lennon music in it. I just think check it out.
It sounds awesome. I will totally check that out.
Won an Oscar. What more can I say about it? And I feel like, every year, we always talk about the Oscar shorts, and there's like even a short documentary category. And I feel like, we don't talk about that stuff enough. Like we see them in the Oscar ceremony. We see the people win, sometimes like Taika Waititi won an Oscar for a short, and that got him into the feature game. But we don't, it's funny to me that like it's part of the Oscar ceremony, but it's not something that we really tend to focus on. And I've kind of made a little resolution with myself to kind of make it a point to try and see those films, because there are ways to see them. Most of them are going to be online. And if not, because I live in LA, there will be some theater that's playing all of them. So
dude,
anyway.
it sounds awesome. I will totally go to YouTube and check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. So tell me about your pet obsession this week.
Oh man. Well, it's a movie I've seen before, but I realize I haven't seen in 30 plus years. And it totally holds up. It totally holds up. Okay, so let me give you a couple of like key bits of information. Maybe you can piece together what movie it is. It's produced by James L. Brooks. Directed by Cameron Crowe.
Okay.
Has John Cusack in it.
God damn it!
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I was going to say I bet you know this movie. It came out in 1989.
It's not The Sure Thing. No, that was Rob Reiner, right?
That's right. That's Rob Reiner. You're close though. You're in the right ballpark. It's Say Anything.
Oh, Say Anything. Oh yeah, of course.
I saw Say Anything in the theater, and then I think I saw it when it first came out on video. And like I remember really, really liking it, but not revisiting it, never going back to it and seeing it again after probably that second time that I saw it on video, on VHS or whenever it was. And holy crap, does the movie hold up? It holds up really, really well. And I was kind of surprised because I didn't expect it to have, I remember it as being sort of like a, lighthearted team, dramedy sort of story, love story type of thing. And first of all, the cast is great between John Cusack and Ione Skye. But I mean, even all of the supporting characters, and there's a bunch of Jeremy Piven's got a part in it. Eric Stoltz got a part in it. There's a lot of people in this. It's
Jeremy Piven and John Cusack were like good pals, and Bern Piven, who is Jeremy Piven's dad, was a huge acting teacher in Chicago and taught both of them.
Yeah, you nailed it right there exactly too. So it's a really well put together movie, and it's shot by Laszlo Kovacs. The guy's got a couple of good
Never
movies
heard
under
of
his
him.
belt.
Anyway,
and it's supposed to take place in Seattle, and there's clearly some exteriors shot in Seattle, but like the famous boombox scene is that park in North Hollywood. It's like,
really?
Yeah. As you're like, as I'm watching this movie and as you're looking at like the city of Seattle, I'm like, I've been to Seattle. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I know what Seattle looks like. I'm like, this looks an awful lot like North Hollywood. Yeah, it's North Hollywood. There's a lot of North Hollywood. So anyway, Say Anything, if you've never seen it. And look, I have two teenagers I tried to convince to watch this. Neither one of them they were like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what this is. I was like, it's a good movie.
It's like trying to make people of our generation when we were teenagers watch The Graduate. I mean, the movie is a lot like The Graduate in many ways.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And this movie though totally holds up. It totally is worth your time, and it's a totally reasonable running time as well too. So it's a tight movie. It moves. Cameron Crowe's writing and directing is spot on. It was his third movie, and it's charming in all the right ways. So if you're looking for a something to check out from the library, which is actually where we got it on physical media for free at the library.
Oh wow!
It's like, you know what? Take advantage of your public library. Your public library probably has an incredible collection of stuff. It was on Blu-ray. It was a Blu-ray DVD. This is amazing, and it was free. And it took me, a trip to the library. So, anyway, Say Anything, 1989. Go see it if you haven't seen it. I give it 2 big thumbs up.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, Ben, that does it for another episode of the Cinematography Podcast. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
You can find me at benrock.com and find all my socials there. And I may have a little bit of news in the next week. There may be a Kickstarter campaign for a short film I might be directing that I might be plugging. So look for that. You can find me also on Blue Sky, LinkedIn,
all the places.
Facebook. It's so funny. Facebook has now become the place for old people.
OnlyFans?
No, I haven't started my OnlyFans yet. How about yourself, Ilya? Where can people find you?
OnlyFans. No,
Okay.
You can find me at Hot Rod Cameras, hotrodcameras.com. That is, sponsor the show, place to buy all your incredible camera gear, the stuff that you might need for whatever it is that you're doing. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Instagram seems to be the 2 places that people connect with me via the interwebs. Ben, who made this show possible? Who do we have to thank?
I mean, the person who makes it possible more than any other person alive is Lana Cody, our producer, and also our editor, who kicks all the ass. And I mean, like, she was just, whew. I would hate to trade places with her during the run up to the end of the year when we were interviewing, all the people who had big movies in theaters that are, Oscar contender level movies. She does a great job fielding that, and we got some really exciting interviews out. We didn't do host wraps for Autumn Gerald Arkapaw, but my God, what a just a brilliant person to talk to. I was so excited to get to talk to her. But all that's because of Alana. And then we also got to thank Kay Zalatracci, who composed all of the music that you hear on the show. And check his website out, musicbykays.com. Hire him to score your next thing. He's a great composer. Also, if you're so inclined, go to YouTube and check out his channel, Kays Labs, where he fixes synthesizers. And that is some geeky stuff. And I say this as someone who is 2 feet from a 3D printer. So it's pretty geeky what he's into, but it's definitely smart and above my pay grade what he's doing there. So that's about it.
We appreciate geeks here on the podcast for sure.
I mean, that's kind of like, without geeks, where the hell would we be? Nowhere.
That's right. The internet exists because of geeks.
Yeah. But really, like, our podcast is by and for you and I are geeks, and then
movie geeks.
Pretty much everyone, every DP is, you don't get to be a DP because you're too cool for school and you don't care about nerdy stuff.
That does it for this episode. Do you want to take us out?
Would I? Let's go. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Cinepod, the cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory at hotrodcameras.com. Watch and subscribe to our show on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow and interact with us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. But not X. Don't do that. Thanks for tuning in.